Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the second race and the second round of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Live tonight for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway in Homestead, Florida. I am James Pike, voice of Podium Esports, alongside Evan Pasoko, Josh Lee, Jeff Piccone, our producer Ryan Bauer. Cameras provided to us by Dougie Beard, Justin Prince down on pit road for us this evening. Gentlemen, lots to talk about when we come to South Florida, but lots that you can make out of this mile and a half. This is one of the most unique intermediate tracks on the surface, Evan, and it's a place where you're not necessarily locked into one particular groove or one particular way to get around this racetrack. You can change lanes, you can change apex points, you can change your entry, your exit in a lot of different ways to find the optimal lap for your race truck in today's case.
It's a fun place to go to, right? I mean, oftentimes when you think of an intermediate track, you just assume it's that cookie cutter, right? But Homestead really is unique in that respect, and I think it stands the test of time that it's such a good racetrack. The fact that it still plays host to the last round of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. But, with this being round two, it's a return to form, right? We talked a lot last week about how Knoxville was an outlier. Now's your opportunity. If you had a bad night, are you going to let that poor start dictate how round two goes for you? If you had a good night at Knoxville, can you turn that into some momentum? Because honestly, the last time out, not a huge indication of overall speed for these drivers, right? This is their bread and butter, a racetrack where we put a lot of it back into the driver's hands, so it should be fun to see. Are people scrambling? It's only round two, but we got some big names below that cut coming into this evening with some work to do.
And there's a lot that we can take a look at as we peek at the schedule and at the point standings. We can see where we're headed. Homestead tonight, Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time, then Rockingham, Texas, Bristol, and Phoenix to round out the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, which is going to be very fun. But to Evan's point, Josh Lee, you look at the point standings here, and there are some names that you would expect to be up near the front of the point standings early on in the second round. But there are some drivers who had really poor nights who need to have good races and get back on track.
Knoxville was great for some drivers. We mainly talk about Austin Yarbrough. He led every single lap of the second split 2 weeks ago. Donovan Strauss got the win in the top split. Retzlaff with a good night. LaPrade, Eberhardt, they're your top 5. But you go further down in the points. Casey Tucker, Brandon Cattell, Blake McCandless, Liam Brotherton, all of those drivers having less than stellar nights in Knoxville. This is a bit of a return to form. They're back on asphalt. They're back on an intermediate track, 1.5 miles. This could be just sort of a mental reset for a lot of these drivers to get back into Road to Pro form.
Looking at some of the names here, you see some famous names, some familiar names, some former Coke Series competitors trying to race their way back into the Coke Series for 2022, and all names that we will watch across not only our broadcasts here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel, but you can also head to twitch.tv/podium2 and see the second race over with coverage from Zach Johnson, Jacob Hitz, Kevin McAdams, Justin Malilla, and Sean Butler. Jeff McConey, you know all about each and every racetrack that we go to in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. So let's go from Knoxville, where we were 2 weeks ago, and find out a little bit more about Homestead Miami Speedway.
Homestead Miami Speedway is a fun little track as we are zooming on in, as you can tell, to Southeast Florida. You have basically 4 turns, with the turn 4 wall being the home of none other than our very own Joshua Lee. But taking a look around, you can run all the different lines of this racetrack. You can run all the way at the top, all the way at the bottom, in the middle. Wherever you can find speed, you're gonna want to find it. One of the newer tracks opened November 5th, 1995. It's a 1.5 miles, 18 to 20 degrees of banking progressive. That's what lets these drivers run all over. The straights are banked at only 5 degrees, so it's there, but not really too noticeable. Nothing like Dover. Another cool fact, you got the whole infield is a little road course there. So my prediction, bold prediction here of the night, by 2026, NASCAR will be racing the infield road course at Homestead Miami Speedway. That's just what I predict coming in, but we'll see how it ends up going.
We'll leave it to our chat to clip that and hold you to your word, Jeff McConey. I think that could be a fun prediction to revisit in maybe 2 or 3 years as we dig our teeth into Homestead Miami Speedway. 1.5 miles in length, 18 to 20 degrees of progressive banking on this, or corners rather, with 5 degrees of banking on the straights here. Fast time of 31.180 seconds. John Wood put the fastest lap ever recorded in a truck here at Homestead Miami back in 2007. As these drivers work their way through qualifying, you take a look and see who has the top spot on the grid as of now. Liam Brotherton with a fast time there, 32.715 seconds. And all separated by, maybe what, a 10th throughout the top 10, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tight, right? This is to be expected, but, we talk about different lanes and drivers moving around to be able to do so with race car, right? Not going to see a ton of that in this qualifying session. Everybody's going to be out there. We expect the times to be super tight at this level of sim racing. I really think where this race can come into its own is if we get those green flag runs, right? You get some tire wear, you get some rubber put down, you see the track temperature change over the course of the afternoon, and drivers have to move around. So, the fastest guys are going to be fast, for the most part, James, especially in this qualifier. But, when we're talking about a couple hundredths of a second between 10, 15 positions, I mean, qualifying can only mean so much. And that very quick short run speed, like a hot lap in Q, is not going to save you from not having a good run in the race. So you're really going to have a well-rounded race car tonight to find success in a pretty long race.
And it's all about momentum. We know these trucks don't necessarily have that much horsepower, Jeff McConey. So corner exit, I think in particular, is going to be critical in determining who has a good finish tonight and who ultimately wins this race.
Absolutely. You have to get the really strong runs off the corner because, like you said, these trucks don't have nearly as much power as a Cup car. And even in a Cup car or Xfinity car, you're not going to be on the brakes too much. So you want to carry a lot of momentum. You can ride that high line. Another thing to keep in mind is these tires will wear out, and they wear out quicker than you think. So you will fall off upwards of 2 seconds sometimes even. So when you get that open window for your pit stops, you need to jump in and take it and get tires as soon as possible. Staying out on the long run here and trying to long pit usually doesn't work out too well. It's about 45 to 50 laps or so if you're saving fuel that you've got out there. Your tires are going to last about as long as that. So don't be surprised if you see some short pitting. I would expect 2 to 3 pit stops tonight if it goes green to the end, but we'll see how it ends up playing out. Homestead can be one of those places where you get long green flag runs, but when there's one caution, there can be many at a place like this.
Especially if they come towards the end of the race. We know that tire wear is going to be important. This track, maybe more so than any other mile-and-a-half circuit on the schedule, has an immense amount of tire fall off over the course of a green flag run. It's one of the many things we'll be watching this evening as we take you to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver begins. Liam Brotherton held on to that fast time, so the Elliott Sadler Esports driver will clock in the top spot with a 32.715, joined on the outside of the front row by Dylan Alt. Parker Retzlaff, who has been so good throughout this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series in 2021. He's there within the first 3 rows, as is former Coke Series driver Justin Bolt.
You get some other big names back here. We talk about the likes of Agnew Phillip. You got a guy trying to race in, going up against a guy like Michael Guerrilla, trying to get himself back to that top level ahead of LaPrat and Farina as your top 12.
Nicholas Shelton starts to the inside of row 7. Will Norton to the outside of that row. Casey Tucker, Benjamin Nelson, both looking for better days than Knoxville 2 weeks ago. Same thing with Brandon Cattell, who sits on the inside of row number 9.
Jeremy Allen will be starting in 19th on the inside of row 10, with Spencer E. Burns, the ever-famous media man himself, starting 20th. Christian Peterson, Nate Stewart, followed by Timu Toika and Aaron Rodgers, rounding out the top 24.
Jordy Lopez Jr. won the top split race here at Homestead in this series a year ago. He'll start in 25th this evening. Big names across the board. Connor Horn, ERL champion in the fall of 2020. Nick Morse back here as well.
And now towards the back of the field here, drivers missed the mark. The likes of Helton, Noel, Moose, Fulton, and Michael Finlayson at the very bottom of the board to look top to bottom at your starting grid at 35.
Michael Finlayson had connection issues and was not able to set a qualifying time, so he starts at the back of the grid. Quick look at the weather and the time of day in sim. It is July 17th, 2021, just a few days ago in sim. Partly cloudy, although mostly sunny. You can see on your screens. Air temp of 77 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp of 119 degrees Fahrenheit, winds headed to the east at 5 miles an hour, and humidity of 62%. We go for 134 laps, 201 miles, 324 kilometers this evening to complete the second race in the second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. For late-breaking stories on pit road, before we get the green flag, let's go quickly to Justin Prince.
One of the drivers who spoke to some of the viewers actually before tonight's race was Blake McCandless, and he was feeling pretty confident in regards to his truck, one of the top drivers in qualifying as well. He mentioned the importance of track position for an event such as this, so it's going to be very critical for him to move on forward. Keep an eye on Blake McCandless to try and make some moves and be dynamic on his lane choices.
You will not miss the Mr. Four Skis paint scheme honoring his grandfather, Herb McCandless, a champion of the U.S. Nationals, drag racing's big event up in Indianapolis each year. So watch for that number 4 truck to make moves. Watch for a lot of other trucks to make moves. We're glad that you're with us here on Podium Esports as Liam Brotherton stands on the gas pedal, and we are underway with the second race of the second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Homestead, Miami. Brotherton in control after the first 2 laps of this race, but look at that big move to the inside. There goes Dylan Alt underneath Brotherton for the race lead, exiting turn 2, and Alt becomes your second race leader of this very young race.
He's able to pounce on this quick and try to take control early on in this one. The battle for second continues, and we'll see what Liam Brotherton, I should say, can do here under the fence, because Retzlaff makes quick work of him through the inside, but way up top in 3 and 4 was Blake McCandless. So you got drivers making moves low, making moves high. Here's the view from Bolton. He'll decide to tuck and line to the inside and line behind Honeycutt.
It's going to be a big move for Blake McCandless. You see creeping in just to the right side of that onboard as we get a good shot of Justin Bolton. There's McCandless now up top here, looking off the rear deck lid of Parker Retzlaff as McCandless goes back to the inside to try and get underneath that 42 truck and take over second, Josh.
And McCandless now trying to fight from third. He is doing an amazing job cutting his way through this field. Started back in the 7th spot. He's up 4 spots from where he started, and side by side behind him, it's Honeycutt down to the inside of Brotherton as we hop back a little bit in the pack to Brian LaPrade making a move on Justin Bolton. We've been talking about Brian LaPrade this entire Road to Pro season. Missed out just barely last season on getting into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. He's had a great start in round number 1, a great start with round number 2, and he's looking to continue that in that Ledford Billiard Supply Ford F-150.
Jeff McConey, if you've been following Brian LaPrade and you know the iRacing community at large, especially on the oval side, you know that Brian LaPrade is going to be there and be in the hunt for race wins, in the hunt for top 5s, top 10s, pretty much every single week. And that's pretty much exactly what we've seen from LaPrade in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Just a tremendous amount of consistency for the lockdown racing driver in the number 35 and Ledford Billiard Supply Ford F-150, the Manchester, Tennessee, and Brian LaPrade, no exception, I think, tonight, already up inside the top 10 early on in this race.
I mean, honestly, you can just sum it up with caw. He is the bird, and he's on the move. He's all the way now running up in the top 10. His teammate, Michael Finlayson, is a bit further back. He had issues connecting. He's running in 31st now, but if you are sort of towards the back, you want to just save your stuff. But yeah, definitely keep your eye on Brian LaPrade. He drove all the way up. He was the only car that was really running that bottom at Knoxville, running right up against that inside barrier. So he was able to get it done there. I think we're going to see another good run out of him tonight. He's already up 5 spots, excuse me.
A little bit further back in the field, Jordy Lopez Jr. already up 4 positions from where he started. And as we mentioned on the grid, Evan Pasoko, no shocker that Lopez is making a charge to the field early. He won the top split of this race 1 year ago. The format for last year's eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series was a little bit different, so it is directly apples to apples. But the fact remains, Jordy Lopez knows how to get around this place in a truck.
Yeah, that stays true, right? That's the constant, and that's where when you get a racetrack like this, where it's a driver's track, if you can figure something out, it'll stick with you for quite some time. So Lopez doing his best in traffic, trying to make his way through the field in this race. He's got some teammates there, but towards the front of the field, Retzlaff kind of settling in this new 1-2-3. That sees Alt leading to Retzlaff, and then McCandless a little bit further on down the road. That is Justin Bolton on the inside line, and up top is Agnew Phillip in the number 26 Chevrolet. Bolton and Brotherton both going backwards and giving an opportunity here for Phillip to get some spots early in the opening 10 laps of this race. He stays committed to the outside line. Going to be tricky there if you're really willing to put it on that fence. I mean, where do you go in comparison to that line this early in the race? But if you can make it work, look at that run they get off of the bank and down to turn 3.
Also of note, just ahead of these drivers, look at that 10 machine of Liam Brotherton, who started on pole and is already down 6 spots from where he began this race. So Brotherton falling back into the pack as other drivers like Phillip and Bolton try and make their way forward. Brian LaPrade, we just talked about, one of the biggest gainers so far towards the front end of the field. He's up 5 spots from his starting position, as is Casey Tucker, who began tonight in 15th and currently runs in 10th, Josh.
And you see Brotherton just trying to get his bearings once again and work his way back up through the field. He's fighting with Agnell Phillip diving to the bottom of the racetrack to make that move side by side as they work their way through the corner. And you can see majority of the field now starting to single file out and just continue to get their bearings on this course, because this track can be relatively tricky, especially just trying to pick a line and try to choose exactly where they want to run. Everybody seems to be favoring that middle to bottom line. We could see that change as we work our way through this race.
And more often than not, Jeff, we do see that change, that as these tires begin to wear out, drivers will move up the racetrack and start running more towards the wall. We're already seeing it a little bit. They've come up about a lane off of where they started this race, and they will continue to go higher and higher and higher up the racetrack until we get, maybe 28, 30 laps into a green flag run. They'll be up against the fence sooner rather than later.
Yeah, you're right. It all depends on the setup as well, because you can see up front, they're sort of running down there around 4th place. Blake McCandless, Caden Honeycutt, they're running all the way down on the bottom. So you can find speed all over this racetrack, or if you're like me, you can't find speed anywhere on this racetrack. So it all depends on your approach to it, on the setup to it. I know Justin will probably have more information for us later on some of the thoughts of these drivers going in, but from what we were all hearing beforehand, this is proving to be a very difficult racetrack in order to find any sort of an advantage. Now Blake McCandless fighting off Caden Honeycutt. He goes all the way up to the wall like he was when he was making passes at the start. So there's speed all around this racetrack. Now you see Honeycutt get side by side, but McCandless is able to just pull him away by using that speed up from the top groove. So you can find speed anywhere. Looks like McCandless is now going to be experimenting and flirting with that wall up there.
So McCandless will run that top line, and Justin Prince, they're going to try and chase down the driver of that number 42, Parker Retzlaff.
And it was emphasized by a few of the drivers, keep in mind for tonight, that if you use that top line, it can burn up your equipment. Dirty air is a major factor for these drivers to think about. As some of the drivers had told me, James, some of them had mentioned where, depending on your track position, it can burn up your equipment and hurt your long run pace. Now, keep in mind, some of the drivers also thought that the top line wouldn't come into play like it has been in 3 and 4. They thought it would in 1 and 2, but with the awkward shape with how the hillside is built up here, with the elevation change that you have at Homestead Miami Speedway from front stretch to back stretch, that can come into play. So some of these drivers having that to keep in mind.
Something that I want to comment on here, though. You see the battle forming up for second place. Blake McCandless was rolling that top side. He was able to make it work in 2 and 4 and anywhere he needed to. Then you saw up ahead of him Parker Retzlaff migrate up there. And all of a sudden, Blake McCandless in that dirty air is dead in the water. He's lost 3rd position and he's trying to fight back now. Honeycutt was all the way fighting for 2nd. So you can really lose a lot of momentum up at the top if someone that's slower than you gets up there. So you have to be careful. Now Blake McCandless dives down to the bottom. Retzlaff saw what was going on behind him, tried out that top line, and it's not working for him. Retzlaff could even lose 3rd here.
I think Retzlaff was trying to cross McCandless over as they exited out of 2. The problem was that 10 machine of Caden Honeycutt was in the way, so Retzlaff is going to have to dig on the bottom to try and keep alongside McCandless, but that great run that he gets along the fence will vault Blake McCandless back into the runner-up position.
It's just impressive that, McCandless is able to make it work anywhere, right? So he completes the pass as you look off of the back of him, and now he rides down kind of in that middle lane, right about a lane up off of the bottom. Not quite as low as what you're seeing at a Honeycutt there, but, he's able to catch him up top. He's able to make it work on the bottom. You want a race truck that's versatile, and it's a big reason why he is a +5 early in this race. You're looking off of the nose now of, I believe that's Brian LaPrade, turning it up and into the mix as he tries to chase down these cars from the number 5 spot. Breyer up 6 early in this race. A lot of big movers. What I say off at the top, if this race gets green flag runs, drivers are going to be able to work it through, and you're looking at your race leader working down the race leader. Blake McCandless is more than a half a second off, but you can take a look at the last lap times. He was a 1/10 and a half better, so he is reeling in Dylan Alt in the battle for 1st and 2nd.
I'll be curious to see when and or if McCandless decides to switch lanes and maybe go back to the top just to get some air on the nose of his Chevrolet Silverado. It might not matter if he can run down Dylan Alt at this rate as they come across the stripe last time by. pretty much dead even on the lap times at 34.862 to a 34.864. So 2/1000ths of a second. And yes, on the famous quote, I suppose, does apply in this case, as McCandless tries to run down Dylan Alt. He's up the last routes from where he started. We talked about the Pratt earlier. As we go a little bit further back, we'll take a look at Max Brady, who is, guess what, Josh Lee, also up 5 positions from where he started. Began tonight in 18th, currently runs 13th.
And a good run for the Marietta, Georgia driver as he tries to work his way back up through the field, but you can see side by side ahead of him, Nicholas Shelton to his outside, Casey Tucker on the inside line as we go on board. Michael Guerrilla trying to make his way back into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, running that bottom line. And you were mentioning lap times, James, and I was taking a look at everybody's best lap times compared to their last lap times, and we are already down about a second and a 6/10 from where we started this run to where we are now in terms of lap times. We're only 20 laps into this run, and Jeff mentioned it in the open. Tires can go really quickly. We're already seeing that here as we're only nearing halfway into this fuel run.
See a good group of drivers fighting in the middle of the pack. Meanwhile, Blake McCandless going underneath Dylan Alt for the race lead. Not quite there yet, and they make slight contact on the back straightaway. McCandless will dart back to the high side, and it'll be Caden Honeycutt going down low. And as they continue to fight for P1, Justin Prince, you have more on Max Brady that we just saw racing a few moments ago.
Yes, indeed. And when it comes to Brady, he mentioned how last week was decent at best in his opinion, since start is not his background, so it was a major challenge where he came away with a P19 finish in that respective race. He's mentioned his preparation was good. It was just a matter of tweaking changes becoming the main thing. But as one of the big movers right now, they consider track position being really important, so their focus is just being patient and letting the trucks come to him. That's the focal point from Liam Sheen, the crew chief from X Brady.
Brady currently still hanging out in the middle of this back 15th on the board as they continue to go after it for the race lead. And this is an interesting position that I think, in particular, Honeycutt and McCandless find themselves in, Evan, because they really aren't helping each other going door to door, because McCandless can't get the run to the outside and drop to the bottom to get underneath Alt like he'd want to, and the 10 of Honeycutt can't come up on corner exit to get the run like he would want to. So this almost ends up being a perfect scenario for Dylan Alt to hang on to the lead for a little bit longer.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you're going to just take turns and, have somebody get a crack at it and hopefully both dispose of Dylan Alt. But in actuality, never how it works out. McCandless wants to get clear first, hoping that maybe Alt can hold up Honeycutt and give him an advantage. And it is vice versa for the driver of the number 10 Toyota. But again, McCandless trying to squeeze the inside. It's not sticking down there quite as well as it was earlier in the race. Pushed up off of 2, Honeycutt to the inside. Now give the number 2 spot to Caden Honeycutt. So the infighting is what is helping Dylan Alt here. It's early in the race. There's maybe a little bit more give and take it out than you'll see later, but it's an age as old as time, as race car drivers don't operate on battles for the race lead under logic and thinking ahead, right? I mean, everybody wants to be the first driver to get up there, especially with the stakes at this level. And I wonder, talking to, Jeff's point about the outside working on those tires, I wonder if McCandless is feeling that now, struggling a little bit as we were on board with Liam Brotherton, who slid back to 9th after starting this race on pole.
He is in the thick of the first good battle on this racetrack, where they may well just go 3 wide on the exit of turn 4. You've got Brotherton, Brendan Kohler, and Agnell Phillip all fighting for position coming down the front straightaway, and Nicholas Shelton there with a big move by the 80 of Brandon Cattell to get to the inside.
Here comes Cattell running right down on that bottom line, 3 wide for a moment, all the way up by the wall at Kohler. Middle is Shelton as he is going to lay on the number 80 of Brandon Cattell. Here comes the number 10 machine, Liam Brotherton, forcing his way into the top line as well. 5 cars put a blanket over him right now. It's Kohler, it's Agnell Phillip, it's Cattell, it's Brotherton, it's Shelton. Still 3 wide as they come off of turn number 4. Shelton going to give way in the middle. Brotherton with a huge run coming off of turn number 4 on that outside line, and they'll settle it back to single file. Still 2 wide between Cattell and Shelton as they work their way through 1 and 2.
Kohler did not get a good run off of turn 4 at all, so Brotherton clears him on the outside. That truck looks loose along the fence as Cattell tries to work to the inside of the 14 truck that belongs to Nicholas Shelton. And look, a little bit of company there, Evan, that we know well because it's his free race show for the Coach Series teammate in 2021, Michael Guerrilla, that trails the rear deck lid of Brandon Cattell as it stands.
Yeah, those guys are really hoping it keeps it clean, or it'll be an interesting show next Tuesday night as you're on board with the Guerrilla, and right across the nose in front of him there is Brandon Cattell. Of course, Shelton also at the bottom. Got a Brotherton up at the outside wall alongside with Brendan Kohler. So even 29 laps into this opening green flag run from Homestead, drivers still going all over the racetrack trying to make some moves. But, I mean, Cattell's somebody to watch for. Up 7 positions. That's one of the bigger movers in the field. If he could just get out of this mess just inside of the top 10, if you get up to Agonell Phillip in 7th position where things really start to single file out, Cattell going to be sitting pretty, but it's going to be awfully tough to get through this. And look up the road, there is Shelton again now to the inside of Phillip, into the inside of Brotherton. So why not make the fun and go all the way up to 7th?
As they continue to fight, we remind you that tonight's broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series is brought to you by McConey Setup Shop, your home for iRacing setups and the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From Legends to Cup cars, they have you covered, with dirt setups also available for late models, modifieds, wing sprints, and road setups for F3, LMP2, and GT4 cars. Coaching with professional drivers like eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Zach Novak, teammate Jimmy Mullis, River Hayes, and more, all available at McConeySetupShop.com/coaching for just $25 per hour. At McConey Setup Shop, there are setups for your victories. Their newest book, How I Drive, with a foreword by NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo, is now available on their website. Come learn from the pros how to be the best driver you can be by visiting McConeySetupShop.com for more information. Wow. We gave a little bit of love there, Jeff McConey. We have a new race leader, and his name is Caden Honeycutt.
A great run so far from Caden Honeycutt. He got a win in the first round of Road to Pro and trying to keep that momentum going as he leads the way. Bridge City, Texas driver for Nexus Esports. He was a mainstay of the second split throughout round 1 and now up here in the top split in the second race of round number 2. Trying to pull away from the rest of the field, about 8.5 tenths the gap down to Dylan Oltz in second place.
Caden Honeycutt, big-time driver, got plenty, I think, coming his way as we look at Brian LaPrade trying to make his way a little bit further up the field, working over Parker Retzlaff for what would be the 4th position if he can get out front there. But big moves from both these drivers and Blake McCandless. For a lot of the folks at the front of this field, Evan, these are some of the best performances that I think we've seen, at least to now, in an individual race in this 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Our top 5 have not had the best of runs as of late, but really putting on some muscle early on in this race.
Well, that's the time to do it, right? I mean, we talk about momentum, and it continues to be debated, right, how much it actually plays a factor in. But listen, if you're on a roll and you're feeling hot and keep at it, look at all the wheel by Connor Horn. I mean, very different to the calm race up front for either the top 3 or 4 that are broken away midfield here. These guys are working really hard to hang on to these things, but now's the time to do it, right? I talked about the weird round at Knoxville where it's good to be good on dirt, but does, your dirt speed in a NASCAR Camping World truck really reflect your road to pro speed overall? Not really, right? So that one's a wash. You started off bad, you got to make up for it. You started off good, you want to try to translate that into some momentum. I really consider this your opener for this second round, and for guys like Honeycutt from McCandless, to be running inside of the top 3, make it a statement to this point. And Nick Shelton up there as well. Bolton trying to get back into it. I mean, a lot of drivers super impressive, and you talk about this battle back here for about 22nd position on the back as they race off of 4, some 9 seconds off your race leaders. Drivers with some work to do. Again, these 35 truck fields, and of course, with the format change, of course, having the snake splits for this second round, there is no longer that, all right, well, I'm running 20th, but I'm in top split, right? I mean, these drivers really need to step up, and we'll see how it plays out. It's only round 2 of this second round, or race 2, I should say, James. But, for first time doing this, we're going to learn a lot over the next couple of weeks when we see drivers kind of come and go. I mean, I was talking so good about Agnew Phillip up in 7th, right? I thought he was comfortable 6 laps ago when I talked about him. Look at him now getting passed up by Drew Friedosh and Michael Guerrilla. Cattell has been able to get to him. So somebody else who was working hard, making passes early in the run, now struggling on the back end.
Phillip now sliding further back. I wonder if the tires have faded on the 26 machine, but for now we're going to go a little bit further back in the pack. You saw him just a few moments ago in the Dude White's Ford F-150 for Lockdown Racing. Connor Horn running in the 20th position. Justin Prince has more on him.
And you talked about Knoxville in particular. He mentioned walking away with the 10th place finish was like a win to him after starting in the back of that race. He was 33rd position for that particular event, starting position wise, where his main key was keeping the truck clean. Now, he mentioned the only issues when it comes to dialing the setup this week have been trying to get a balance when it comes to handling and the speed. And he mentioned it's hard to figure out how to get a good handling truck without sacrificing too much straight line speed. He's done a fairly solid job in this race. By the way, guys, keep in mind, we are now approaching the pit window. Drivers can make it about 45-50 laps on fuel.
If we're beginning to reach the pit window, Jeff McConey, shall we be blessed with your wizardry and your wisdom when it comes to pit strategy and get your take on what you think these drivers should do at this stage?
Well, I think the right call here is just listen to your crew chief and trust your crew chief. If you're the driver behind the wheel at a place like this, you're going to complain. You're going to be sitting there and whining and crying and saying, we're not any good, we got to find something here. That's just the nature of the beast. And you always, from my experience at least, feel a little bit off at Homestead. The truck is never quite right. You're never sitting there going, this thing's perfect, don't touch a thing on it. You're always adjusting at a place like this. So I would expect a lot of rear end adjustments. Spring purge offset adjustments are the main form of adjustments here. You can tighten or loosen the truck on the long run. Tire pressures you can play with as well, but that's more something you get dialed in beforehand. So I think we're going to see a lot of adjustments made for the long run speed of these cars, how they're handling there. If you're someone, though, that's sort of found a bunch of speed at the beginning and then were able to hold your spot, sort of like Briar LaPrade, where he was really quick right off the jump and he was able to hold on, I think you're going to be in good shape versus someone like Liam Brotherton. He didn't have much short run speed, but this long run, yeah, he's been able to hold on to top 10. So you're going to find different adjustments there. Someone else to keep your eye on, though, Michael Finlayson. Started 35th. He's all the way up to 21st. He's passed more trucks than anyone else so far tonight. I think he's someone that they're not going to be taking too much of a swing at this truck. If you're charging your way through the field, you're in good shape, especially when your teammate Briar LaPrade is sitting there in 5th.
Using the chance to atone for a mistake I made earlier, it is Finlayson of the Dude Wipes number 36 Ford F-150 for Lockdown Racing. Get a good look at that black and teal and white scheme before we move up a little bit further in this field to Nicholas Shelton, who is chasing down Justin Bolton for a spot just outside of the top 5.
And Shelton,
Well, he's somebody else who's been on the move, right? I mean, we talk about guys on the move. I mean, how many drivers to that point, Josh, have just kind of been stagnant, right? You got Guerrilla, who started 10th. He's still sitting P10. You got Dylan Alt, who's still in 2nd. That's where he started, but that's not really the full tale of the tape because he's kind of been up and down. But, I talked about that sample size and that spread in the interviews through qualifying, and you've either gone forward 5-6 positions or you've gone down 5-6 positions, right? I mean, Nick Shelton in the positive, but it just seems like everybody's moving. Can't promise which direction, but everybody's moving at different points. Nobody's really got a lock down, no pun intended, on where they're running in the field.
Josh,
I walked into it and I had to commit. I walked into it and we had to commit.
What are we going to do with this man's bit, Josh Lee? Goodness gracious.
I think we need, I've been saying it since the start of, since Charlotte, basically. Whenever he mentions anything about cautions, get a clip from Eric Messer. So I think we might see that tonight. I'm hoping we get a Evan Basoko curse here tonight. I want at least one caution called by Evan.
I'm not making bird sounds on the broadcast, so I think it's been a pretty good start to the opening 44 for me.
I'm sorry I like entertaining people. I'm sorry I've got a personality here, so, you know. Retzlaff now hits pit road, so this is going to start kicking things off. Right around lap 43 to 50 was sort of what we were expecting. So bring it in, take 4 tires and fuel, make any adjustments you need. But if you're someone that's run up towards the front there, I think you're going to be in good shape. But look at the speed difference right now for Nicholas Morse. Driving his way, it's like he passes Briar LaPrade like he's standing still. And LaPrade is one of the fastest trucks out here on the long run, so tires make a huge difference here.
We're going to start looking at numbers as these drivers come back out onto the racetrack, and that is a humongous difference. A full second and a half faster as Nick Morris is going to start blowing by these trucks as he races to get his lap back and get back in line where he was before this cycle of green flagged pit stops started. But we'll keep an eye on some of the other drivers who are making their way to pit road. Christian Peterson amongst the drivers that are in for service, as is Christian Budd, Connor Horn, and Tanner Love. Josh Lee.
And multiple other cars coming down into the pit lane. Christian Peterson is in. Coincidentally, or I should say fascinatingly, Nicholas Morse actually was able to get by Parker Retzlaff. Now, he did pit a good considerable amount earlier than Retzlaff. The stint for Nicholas Morse right now is about 12 laps. Parker Retzlaff only on about 1 lap old tires, but it was a successful pass in the pit lane for the number 29. Will that hold? I don't think so, considering we've seen those tires fall off incredibly quickly here. The 29 is gonna start to feel, at least soon, just a little bit of that tire fall off that we've been seeing from these drivers. I think it's going to be an easy pass from all the drivers behind him, but he's also getting by LaPrade, Cattell, multiple others in pit lane. Retzlaff able to get by LaPrade and Cattell, and Drew Farinage coming out of the pit lane as well. Multiple cars are off and in.
They take off. It is Caden Honeycutt who is still in control of this for the moment, but more drivers coming down for service. Justin Bolton, Liam Brotherton, Brendan Kaler, Justin Prince. Any updates from the drivers coming down pit road?
Now, when it comes to some of these drivers, the main things they've been discussing is mainly when it comes to the LaPrade camp, they talked about how they were looking to log some laps before pit stops, where they were a little snug, center and dirtier, but the balance is good. Right now, he is being reminded that he's got a good truck on the long run. Just has to be patient and try and make sure he doesn't force things. That is what the message is for LaPrade and his side of things right now. And you guys talked about Michael Finlayson and his speed. When it comes to his crew, they feel they got one of the fastest long-run trucks in the field.
You look at Finlayson there, he is smack dab in the middle of a very, very scary group. A mixture of trucks on new tires, trucks on old tires. They work to the outside of Casey Tucker and make that pass clean, but this is a very, very dangerous time within this race. Right in the center of green flag pit stops, Jeff McCody, you can end up with so much trouble just because the closing rates are so different between old tires and new tires.
Yeah, it is huge here. I mean, you will see guys blow by like they're standing still. There comes Caden Honeycutt. So now he hits pit road. So does Dylan Alt following. Man, 5 laps you can get away with, but I'm not sure I would be a big fan of staying out any longer than you need to. If it were me out there, I would have come in right when the first person did, and you don't really want to stay out any longer than you have to because you're losing so much speed. You're losing 3 to 4 seconds a lap here, and you're not really gaining that back per se. So it really depends. If it stays green here, it should cycle out the way it roughly was, but I don't know. I think people like Briar LaPrade, Parker Retzlaff, Nicholas Morse, those were all the really smart moves that were able to get it done and really make the right call here. But Nicholas Morse, he pitted a lot earlier. He's running 34.8 to Briar LaPrade's 33.3. Same thing with Parker Retzlaff, 33.7 his last time around. So it all depends how it works out. I think you kind of got to make that call and come a little bit earlier, but hey, you know, you make your bed and you got to lay in it. Sometimes you have to gamble.
It would stand to reason, just looking at the numbers, as McCandless comes down pit road and we're just waiting on Casey Tucker and Nate Stewart to make their stops, that if you are Nick Morse or Derek Fulton, the other truck that I see that's on the same strategy as Morse, you're probably looking at a 3-stop race if you're already 20 laps into the second run, no?
Correct, yeah. So they are going to break it up into 3 stops. You really can get this done in 2 stops though. So that's sort of the move. That's roughly what people are going to do. So you pit 45, 90, and then that would take you right to 135. That's the strategy I like, where it breaks it up into even segments. You take your 2 pit stops at 45 and 90, but you can go a little bit longer and you can get a little bit more out of it. It all depends. But yeah, you need to, if you're further back and you need something to happen, you can gamble, and this is the time to do it. That's what Nate Stewart's doing.
That's exactly what Nate Stewart's doing. And now he'll come down pit road, and he is the last of the drivers to make his stop. So Stewart will fall back, and he will come down pit road for service, and that will conclude the first round of green flag pit stops. As Stewart comes in, it'll be Parker Retzlaff that assumes control of the race lead, and we are going to step aside for just a quick moment, but don't go anywhere. We'll go side by side so you won't miss a moment of the action in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series here on Podium Esports. More coverage from Homestead Miami Speedway coming up in just a few moments. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Makoni Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Makoni Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Makoni Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MakoniSetupShop.com and learn why Makoni Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Makoni Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series.
Rick Morris is around. He's in the wall with a lot of rear end damage.
And trouble, and a yellow flag out for the first time this evening is Nick Morse heavy into the fence over in the middle of 3 and 4 to bring out the first yellow flag in this race. And we'll get a good look at the replay and see what happened. I couldn't tell whether or not there was contact, but looks like, just off of what I can see, Liam Brotherton might have gotten into the 29 machine, Evan.
It all happened in turn 3. So Nick Morris is pretty slow in this situation, right? Because he's got the older tires. We talked about the different pit strategies. So he's just getting eaten up this whole lap. You'll see as they go into 1 and 2. I mean, Nick Shelton's going to get on by on the inside. There's Brandon Cattell making a move. And eventually Liam Brotherton is going to catch up to him in the run down to turn number 3. Watch how far from behind. I mean, Brotherton's a good 8 truck lengths off. But when they get into the corner, he makes a step to the inside. And it's kind of tricky. I mean, Brotherton wants to run the middle lane, and I think the only explanation there is that Nick Morris thought he was going to go down to the white line, given that they were side by side, right? And Nick Morris is taking the corner like he wants to. Brotherton's taking the corner like he wants to, and I think they both just wanted the same lane. And with that closing rate, by the time they realized what was happening, there was nothing that could be done about it.
So Brotherton gets into Morse. Morse goes into the fence. Heavy driver's side damage and some rear end damage as well. Meanwhile, looks like there might be a touch of damage to the right front of Liam Brotherton's machine, as that will bring pretty much everybody down pit road. And Jeff Makoni, you feel for somebody like Nate Stewart, who, if he had hung on for a few more laps, would be sitting really pretty right about now.
Yeah, that's just one of those times that the strategy didn't play out for Nate, so now he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But in a way, if it stayed green, he also would have been in a lot of trouble, because the amount of time that he lost there would have been really bad. So he's in a hole, but he's still on the lead lap. He's going to stay out here. So now he's just on about 5 lap older tires than everyone else. So you can overcome that. So he's really in a better position now, in my opinion, than he would have been in before. So it'll all work out. Yeah, 4 lap older tires. He'll be all right. LaPrade is in a really good position though, because he's going to be starting on the inside here. So if he can get even to the inside of Nate and carry that run off and Retzlaff gets stuck on the outside, then that's a real good possibility. But you're going to also have Jordy Lopez, who has been flying through the field, past 21 trucks tonight. He's also going to be giving everything he's got to that back bumper Retzlaff, making sure that that outside line rolls.
For the drivers who pitted early on in this cycle, or late if you're in Nate's case, because Nate pitted late enough to where he can make this work, but the Jordy Lopez's, I see, the Nicholas Sheltons, the Drew Freenages, people who had maybe 10 to 15 laps on their tires, this yellow was their absolute best friend because they were able to basically bank their track position and jump up. And Lopez in particular, who started in 25th, now going to roll off from 4th with tires that are as fresh as everybody else. Jordy Lopez knows how to get around this place, and that 44, I think, is going to be a threat for Logitech G Altus Esports before this race takes the checkered flag. Nate Stewart will be the one to lead us to green, though, as the lights go off the pace car, and it will come down pit road right about, maybe now. There we go. As Stewart is immediately going to get on the gas pedal, and we're back to green flag racing at Homestead, Miami.
This is exactly what Briar LaPrade needs as Parker Retzlaff gets there. LaPrade has the spot, but he's going to lift and let Retzlaff in. Now, if LaPrade was able to hold on to it, that would have been the big move. That's exactly what he would have needed to happen. But Retzlaff, with an aggressive move, gets down in front and takes the lead. That puts LaPrade now behind the 8-ball because he needs to get around Stewart on those 3-lap older tires.
I don't know if the tires are going to be all that happy on Parker Retzlaff's Toyota Tundra. That was a big slide that he put in to make that work, but I don't know if he's going to complain all that much either as Parker Retzlaff goes to the front and Nate Stewart is able to hang on to second for the moment, Evan Pusoko. But for how much longer as LaPrade goes to the inside?
Yeah, that's going to be the question, right? Nate started this race in 20th. It's kind of tough to say where he would have cycled out, right? Because we didn't know really how those varying pit strategies were going to play through. But in theory, if he can hang on to a top 20 spot, it's an overall gain. But, I mean, we always knew the 4-lap, 5-lap older tires, whatever the number was, wasn't going to allow him to maintain the race lead. It's always been a question of how far down the ladder is he going to go. And right now, he's sinking like a rock. Shelton on through. Dylan Alt going to line him up next. But he could easily be outside of the top 10 in 2 laps from now. We'll see how much courtesy some of the drivers give him, and it'll balance out later in the run, but certainly early, everybody else on freshies, you lose those couple of laps of really good stuff, and up top not having much to fight back with. You can see your top about 6 or 7 of single filed out, lots of side-by-side through the racetrack as there's Stewart continuing to hold the car on the outside.
Ooh, a little bit further back, I saw Blake McCandless get the fence in the middle of the pack, and that number 4 truck has slid deep into the field back to 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. Looked like significant damage to the right side. You can see it ever so slightly off for the roof cam there, but pretty well dinged in right side of that Chevy Silverado for McCandless, Josh Lee.
And McCandless just got into the corner. I don't know if he got into maybe some marbles that are up there, or just maybe hit a path, just maybe didn't get on the gas, off the gas enough, got on a little bit too early and just went right into the wall, running now in P30. But this battle for the lead is just starting to shape up. LaPrade up into P2 to go chase down Parker Retzlaff. Dylan Alt trying to rebound. He's led a handful of laps so far in this race. He's trying to get back up to the front of the field, running a little bit slower than the leader right now, but he also is running in traffic as he has the 14 machine Nicholas Shelton in front of him, and in front of Shelton it is the number 10 of Justin Bolton, all trying to work their way further up through the field as Jordy Lopez Jr. is in third, battling with Brian LaPrade for P2.
I think what we're learning, Jeff McConey, is that this is a night for people who are on the normal strategy first and foremost, because we've seen a lot of folks who are on alternate strategies or ways of getting around this track end up in trouble. Nick Morse was on a 3-stop strategy. He hit the fence. Blake McCandless was the only driver to consistently run the top line as I see one truck get to the apron a little bit further back in this field. But Blake was running the top, and then the yellow flag comes out, and it looked like it was afters from what I I may have caught over in 4, but we are under the yellow flag once again, and a few trucks involved. There's Aaron Rodgers in the 31 machine with heavy damage to the front end of his machine. We'll take a look at the replay, see what happened in just a bit, Jeff McConey. But for those who have been running anything other than the norm, a tough break across the board.
It is. That wreck all stemmed from Tanner Love going into the corner. Michael Grillia, he catches that left rear of it. That just causes a big stack up behind. And then once you start wrecking here, it's hard to stop. So that took a lot of trucks in it with that wreck. Now it's a game of just holding on. Logan Helton has a lot of damage as well. He's sort of a young gun in this series. He really was on the outside looking in. I believe it was 72nd, and he needed to be top 70. I believe it was 72nd that he finished. With the way things all tumbled out, he ends up in the last spot transferring in, and he is one of the top up-and-coming drivers on the service. He's wrapped up in it. We saw Michael Grillia tied up in it. Will Norton was involved. So a lot of really strong trucks are now all caught up in that wreck, and Blake McCandless barely manages to sneak his way through. That was a really good dodge by him, but as you can tell, these drivers are just on board for the ride. You just pray that you're able to get through. Blake McCandless able to get it done. Sneaky beaky like gets through that wreck.
That started out calculated, but it got real lucky off of turn 4 there.
Really, really lucky indeed, as the rest of the field will come down pit road for service. And I guess this ends up being a big break for Nate Stewart more than anyone else, who gets to find himself back on the same tire strategy as everybody else. No more old Goodyears for his truck. He can sit in and lock in where he needs to. But off of pit road, big run here for Parker Retzlaff, who is going to win the battle and get out in front of everybody, save for the one truck that's decided to stay out on the racetrack, Josh Lee, which is the number 29 of Nick Morse.
I don't think it's going to help him much. He still has that damage. He didn't get to, he got a little bit of it repaired. Still has a little bit of damage to the left side of that truck from the incident that he had, but he is on 11 lap old tires, way off the strategy of everybody else. If he continues to stay out, don't think it's going to be the best idea, but if he also comes in, he will lose a ton of spots on the racetrack. It kind of is just a game of, does he want to lose him under green? Does he want to lose him under caution? And he's going to choose to lose him under green as he stays out.
So he'll stay out, and as they come across the stripe, we will hit the halfway mark in tonight's race, and that in turn gives us the opportunity to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Nick Morse, your race leader, ahead of Parker Retzlaff. Jordy Lopez Jr. rides third. Brian LaPrade is fourth. Fifth belongs to Justin Bolton. Dylan Ault is sixth. Seventh to Nicholas Shelton. Caden Honeycutt rides at eighth. Ninth to Brandon Cattell. And 10th, Evan Pacheco to Liam Brotherton.
Ian continued on through. Justin is here in the number 11 spot, headed 8th Stewart in 12th, but Drew Friedosh, Brendan Kohler, and Christian Peterson in the top 15. Michael Fenley, Max Brady, Jeremy Allen, Spencer Burns, Connor Horn, the top 20.
Casey Tucker in 21st is Dalton Collins in 22nd, Benjamin Nelson 23rd, Agnell Phillip 24th, Patrick Moose rounds out your top 25, Seth Noel 26th, Derek Fulton 27th, Blake McCandless finds himself 28th, Tanner Love and Timu Toika rounds out your top 30 with Christian Budd, Michael Grillia, Will Norton, Logan Helton, and Aaron Rodgers running out the 35 cars on the track right now as we come back to green, James.
There's your update. There's your iRacing Midway Race Break with over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scanned tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. And we'll see who can get around Nick Morse with the old tires. It's about a 10-lap difference, and he's going to get sent right in the middle, as I wonder if there might have been contact between Morse and Parker Retzlaff, who was loose in the middle of the exit at 2. But here comes the freight train to the inside. Jordy Lopez Jr. to the lead for the first time tonight, with Brian LaPrade and Tillman Retzlaff on the outside.
It was a real messy restart. Brady got a little bit sideways further back, checked a couple of trucks up, but look at the decision here. A split call for the race lead. Jordy Lopez tried to go to block Brian LaPrade. It'll only open up the outside for Retzlaff. 3 wide in the battle for the race lead at lap 71. LaPrade gets it first, and he puts a slide job on 2 of them. Now Retzlaff to the inside.
Only for a moment does he take the lead because Retzlaff will send it in deep on the inside into turn 3, slide up in front of LeBron, block the 35, and now Jordy Lopez Jr. will have the opportunity to respond on the inside, but he didn't get a good run out of turn 4, so Josh Lee give the lead, at least for the moment, to the number 42, the driver out of Wisconsin, now on point at Homestead, Miami.
LaPrade made another peak down to the bottom, not able to get there, so Retzlaff, with everybody single file behind him now, going to try and take this opportunity to start to pull away, but it's not going to do a lot right now as LaPrade stays in his mirror, stays hunting him down in second place, about a half truck length back. Jordy Lopez Jr. about a half truck length back from LaPrade. It's another half back to Bolton, another half back to Alt. That's your top 5 as they race back to the stripe.
Justin Bolton now to the inside, looking for a peek underneath Jordy Lopez. Didn't have anything, but they've strung out now amongst the front. Oh, maybe call it 10 or 11. And you have to go back to Christian Peterson, Brendan Kohler, and Nick Morris, who continues to slide backwards with the damage and the old tires. Casey Tucker to his inside. Here comes Spencer E. Burns, making his way down on the bottom. And good battling here as Morris continues to slide back, Jeff McConaughey.
Yeah, Morse is going to be falling through the field. Not only does he have damage, but he's also on older tires, so he is struggling. He's all the way back to 12th, 13th, 14th. But someone that's making the pass on him right, actually he's back to 18th now. But someone looking to make the pass on the inside there, Michael Fenlayson, working his way up. Started 35th, now he's up to 18th. He's right behind Nate Stewart, who's been working on an alternate strategy that seems to have worked out in his favor. Stewart up 5 spots from the beginning. But keep an eye on Fenlayson. Him and LaPrade are going to be on similar setups. Those 2 are teammates. If he can get up to the front, he's going to be someone to keep an eye on. But Retzlaff, he's looking awfully strong up there. And Liam Brotherton is fighting his way back up. He's trying to gain some more spots. Don't forget about Caden Honeycutt battling side by side right now with Dylan Alt for 5th place. That 10 car could have a lot more in it that we haven't seen yet.
Could. That, I think we have to keep note of. Remember, Caden Honeycutt was the leader on the back end of that opening stint of the race before we got the yellow flag for Nick Morse's incident in 3 and 4. So if this goes green for another 40 laps or so, this may end up falling right into Caden Honeycutt's hands. And Honeycutt, an interesting story. Not only is he a driver here on iRacing, he's also got a real-life deal with Justin Johnson Racing and Solid Rock Carriers Car Store, where up to this point, he's got a race win and currently sits second in the late model stock standings behind a 2-time series champion Bobby McCarty. So Honeycutt, one of the few here, not the only one. Parker Retzlaff also in that camp. Carson Hocevar competed in the series earlier this year. He too, one of the handful of drivers both trying to use iRacing as a springboard to find some success in the real world, and then taking some notes from the real world and bringing them back to iRacing to make their programs here a little bit better, Evan.
Yeah, and certainly one of the drivers you talk about getting up, to a late model stock level, at the higher levels. I mean, almost all of these drivers, have done some level of outside racing, whether it be karting, some of them trying to get in at their local short track, but certainly hats off to Caden, right? One of the busier on the real life schedule than others, and showing that it's good to be well versed, because just made another pass. He's back up into the number 4 spot, getting around Justin Bolton, maybe a half block that time on the front stretch, just protecting if that number 10 Ford trying to get back underneath him. But he has been the constant tonight. You got a Jordy Lopez up some 22 spots and some others, but the constant tonight has been Caden Honeycutt. And we don't know how the last 56 laps of this race are going to shake out or what have you, but he is having his performance of the season thus far, and it'll be interesting to see as he makes it look easy. I mean, just finding extra speed on the runoff of the corners if he's able to close this one out.
Keep an eye on that track. I think especially about 20 laps from now, once this run stretches into about lap 30, lap 35, that's where Caden Honeycutt tends to be at his best, at least from what we've seen tonight, as Brian LaPrade is just ahead of Jordy Lopez in the shot, looking at LaPrade, who was trying to run down Parker Retzlaff, and last time by, Jeff McConey was a tenth faster than the race leader.
Yeah, he's looking awfully quick out there. So he ran a 961 to the 34.007 of Retzlaff, a 127 that last lap by Retzlaff, a 100 by LaPrade. So he's a little bit quicker. But Justin, you've got some more information on that pit strategy call that Brian made?
Yes, indeed. And in regards to the last stop, hearing they took a little less fuel, in fact, to give him more security, as he loves the balance, feels very comfortable. He told me before this race as well that he was treating it like a newer track, Homestead Miami Speedway, as he didn't have a lot of laps with the new updates to the circuit that has been done here, with it being a lot smoother, but with the grip being adjusted here. So far, he's been able to fly very well throughout the night. Keep in mind that fuel for when strategies come into play.
I get it. He flies. I got you there, Justin. Nice.
Yes.
Nice. That was a good little touch. I like it. Brian LaPrade still trending faster than the leader right now, though, and that is something that you want to see, and we've seen this on the long run. When you start getting into about lap 10 or so, this is when you start to fall off, and if you can hold on and start outpacing the leader now, this is a really good sign for the long run. Someone to keep your eye on as well, Caden Honeycutt. He is running just a little bit quicker than Brian LaPrade even. So that could be because of the draft, since he's about 2/10 back on Briar and Parker, since Caden is 2/10 back on Briar and Briar is 3.5 back on Parker. A little bit more draft there, that could help account for it, but we've also seen Caden Honeycutt be very, very quick here. Keep your eye on him. This race is far from over. We've still got 50 laps to determine this thing. Still a lot of things that can all shake up.
Lots that can happen in the final 40-plus laps of this race. Just to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by TobyChristie.com. If you're a NASCAR fan and you don't frequently visit TobyChristie.com, you're missing out on one of the greatest sources of news in the NASCAR industry. When tonight's race is over, go head on over to TobyChristie.com and check out everything from their team charts to race highlight videos to in-depth stories surrounding the industry and more. TobyChristie.com, your home for NASCAR news. A lot of great pieces over there on Brad Keselowski's imminent departure to Roush Fenway Racing, maybe soon to be known Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, perhaps, at the start of 2022. But Brad going to take over that vaunted 6th car in the NASCAR Cup Series beginning in the 2022 season. Lots of coverage from Toby Christie and his team on that move, which will certainly shake up the Cup Series and the industry as a whole over the course of the next few weeks. As we go on board here with Liam Brotherton, looking at Casey Tucker. This is a battle for 9th and 10th on the racetrack, and good company behind them. There's a gap ahead of them to the tune of about a second to Nicholas Shelton, but Christian Peterson is here, Drew Freenas is here, and then you got a big group with Brendan Kohler, Justin Nasir, Spencer E. Burns, Jeremy Allen, and company just behind.
This is probably one of the, I don't know if we could really call this a mid-pack because it's just outside of the top 10, but I mean, it's one of the calmer times this battle has been all night long. I mean, for so much of this, they've been on top of each other. Maybe these drivers realizing that just the timing of the yellow flags that we've seen so far tonight have kind of messed up some of the strategy and the fuel strategy, tire strategy that some of these drivers have tried to implement, that it has really mixed things up. But I mean, Brian LaPrade going to the race lead and around that number 10 machine got a twofer, right? We talked about the race leaders and whatnot kind of fighting against each other. Well, it was a battle between Honeycutt and Retzlaff that LaPrade took advantage of. So it just seems like these drivers are waiting for that final ball to drop before they really get at it. And speaking of which, we're separated from the end of this race with the pit stops, and some drivers have been in. Blake McCandless off the pit road, so that may be what these drivers are waiting for, Pike, before they turn this thing back up a notch and really go hard to the end of this race. As Honeycutt thinks about challenging to the inside of LaPrade, he wants that top spot back.
So Honeycutt trying to get underneath LaPrade for the race lead. Meanwhile, Jeff McConey, here's the gamble that these drivers are going to maybe make or not make. Because if you think this is going to go green the rest of the way, you're probably looking at pitting somewhere within the next 5 to 10 laps. But if you don't think this is going to go green the rest of the way, and or you want to play it safe, you're splitting this last run in two, and that puts you probably in the ballpark of about maybe lap 105, 110-ish per se.
Yeah, right around there. Essentially, your strategy is from wherever you last pit, you want to break the race in half from there. So you want to evenly split it right down the middle, not overwear your tires. You kind of operate under the assumption that it's going to go green until the end. You hope that it goes green until the end. You plan for the best, but you plan for the worst. You hope for the best, though. So you really want to just split it in half, and you'll be fine here. But Homestead is a tough place. I mean, there's so many different strategies that can play out in your favor. There's a lot of different things that can all change by the second at this track.
Now, we know that there's the easy call of trying to stay out and run all 40 to 45 laps on this set of tires. If you do that, you're clearly hoping for a late race caution. But do you see any value in short pitting here and running a full 40 to 45 laps at the end of this race and going about that far on your final stint and coming in, in about maybe the next 5 laps or so? Is there anyone in this field that might benefit from trying to run that strategy as opposed to splitting it in half like we expect most of the leaders to do?
If you're a bit further back and you are still quick, someone like Finlayson, your undamaged Finlayson, Nasser, Kohler, some of those guys, Farinaj, some of those guys that have clean trucks, then yeah, you can make that happen and you can try and take that gamble. But that's what it is. You are gambling. You are expecting and saying, I'm going to pit now and it's going to be green until the end and I'm going to use those fresher tires in the middle to make it happen. So you really, if you're up front, don't need to do that, right? You're not going to go all in at the casino when you're already up $1,000. You don't need to take that risk because there's just no game to it. Go with the tried and true strategy if you're LaPrade, Honeycutt, Lopez Jr., if you're Justin Bolton. If you're up front, then just play the smart strategy. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. There's no risk putting it all on the line when you could lose it all too.
And so we would expect LaPrade, Honeycutt, Bolton, Lopez, I think everybody back to Retzlaff at the least, probably to come in about 10 to 15 laps or so. But we'll keep our eyes peeled on pit road and see if anybody decides to short pit here to stretch it and go 40-some laps to the end of this race. As we go on board with Brandon Cattell, currently running in 8th, trying to run down Nicholas Shelton, who's maybe 2 or 3 truck lengths ahead of them in the 7th position. More information on pit road as we get set for the final round of pit stops. We'll go back down to Justin Prince.
Now, when it comes to that battle for the race lead, the interesting thing is there are a couple different layers to all this. When it comes to the Caden Honeycutt side, I should say, our camp is saying the handling is fine on the Honeycutt machine. It's just a matter of needing a rhythm. The interesting equation of this, Justin Bolton, who is picking up speed in the late stages of this run. They mentioned in their camp they were doing their best to try and keep track position, but we're not sure if they would have the pace to go for the win, and they were looking for points to make up for a rough first race of this round. So Bolton picking up pace and Honeycutt looking to get the rhythm together.
And everybody trying to keep on the rear deck lid of Brian LaPrade, who has eked out his lead ever so slightly. It's up to 0.3 of a second now, and it's not necessarily bumper to bumper like it was 5 to 10 laps ago, which doesn't seem like all that much, Evan Pasoko, but in a race where the margins have been pretty tight across the board, that gap between Honeycutt and LaPrade that we're seeing right now could end up making all the difference in the world at the end of this.
Because it could also influence what these drivers are going to do pit stop wise, right? When we had that first green flag cycle of the night earlier, your top 2 or 3 at the time all came down at the same time, right? We really didn't see anybody from the top 5 go for the undercut or try to mix anything up. But if you feel like you're stuck a little bit, right? Bolton, Lopez, Retzlaff, I mean, if you're all fighting with each other, even Honeycutt now getting sucked in by that number 10 machine, you can see it's more so now a battle for second on the back than it is a battle for the race lead. Then they may be influenced to say, all right, I need some track position. I need a little bit of space to work here. Maybe you pit a lap earlier. Maybe you pit a lap later. We'll see. I mean, Brian LaPrade's the benchmark. They can see what he's doing. There's nothing that 35 leading this race can do to surprise the cars behind him. Just curious if any of those three who lurk in the distance, if they feel like their best bet's to race them straight up, stay with them, or if they want to try to sidestep them and go for an undercut, get track position, get away from the other guys you're fighting with, focus on fighting for the race win.
As the drivers try and prepare their final strategies in the stretch run to the checkered flag, we will step aside for the final time this evening, but don't go anywhere. We've got coverage of the finish. We'll go green flag, commercial free, the rest of the way from here. Don't go anymore. More coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from iRacing's virtual Homestead Miami coming up on Podium Esports.
What's up, race fans? It's Brad, and I'm here to talk to you today on why TobyChristie.com is lit. TobyChristie.com is known as your one-stop shop for all NASCAR-related news. What y'all don't know is that I like to use it for all other reasons because I don't be looking at the news. So this is what you could do. So grab my cellular device, bro. So what you can do is go to TobyChristie.com. You do a little scrolly scroll. Another great part about TobyChristie.com is that you can check all the best news and owners points related things for the bottom two series that I love the most, the Xfinity series and the Truck series. The last thing before I bore all of you is if you go on TobyChristie.com, the best part is that if you forget for any reason that the owners points are up, or there's a new article, or there's another crew roster with my beautiful name on it, you can actually get a subscription to the TobyChristie.com mailing list, and for free you get all the information and I don't gotta remind you. This is Brad, signing off.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Homestead Miami Speedway. James Pike, Evan Pasoko, Josh Lee, Jeff McConaughey, Ryan Bauer, our producer, Justin Prince down on pit road, Cameron from Ducky Beard, leaders coming down for service as they do. We remind you that if your business is interested in partnering with Podium Esports, we have space available for you. Podium Esports is a plan for every budget and can custom tailor solutions to suit your needs best. For more information on the wide variety of partnership possibilities, send an email to admin@podiumesports.com as Brian LaPrade is in for service, and this comes about a lap after Caden Honeycutt, Jody Lopez Jr., many of the other drivers that were running in the top five came in for service as well. So everybody up front beginning to come in, and now Jeff McConaughey, we're starting to see some of the drivers who are going to try and stretch it and hope they get a yellow make their way towards the front as Casey Tucker comes in for the race lead. So it's Ben Nelson that now has P1, and we'll see who stretches this run and who tries to stay out as long as they possibly can, with hopes that a caution comes in and changes this entire strategy of this race and flips it on its head.
If you've already come down in pit, you want to get back on the lead lap as quick as possible. But if you're staying out, you're hoping for a caution. But Benjamin Nelson now coming in. So if you're Brian LaPrade, you're going to try and capitalize on the chaos. But right now, he has to get around Jordy Lopez Jr. He's got to then get up to Caden Honeycutt, who's a couple seconds ahead. Justin Bolton. This is what I was talking about earlier with staying out and the dangers of it. Now it's all shaken up. We'll see how it ends up playing out here, but this definitely throws a wrench in things.
If you are LaPrade, if you are Honeycutt, if you are anybody in this camp, you want this to go green the rest of the way. If you're somebody here like Logan Helton, who we just rode on board with, Jeremy Allen, and Nate Stewart, Max Brady, everybody in this bunch, you want a yellow, and you want it in the absolute worst way in the next 15 laps or so before you have to come down pit road and you lose the ability to make the choice. But if you're out there and you're staying out front now, you want a yellow in the worst way possible, Josh Lee.
Yeah, and a yellow flag is what a lot of drivers need. I'm not going to throw it to Evan Pasoko to try and jinx it, because I do want to see if it stays green to the end, but we still have 8 cars that are staying out on the racetrack that are trying to stretch this stint just a little bit further. It's Jeremy Allen and Nate Stewart in a battle for the lead, as one car will go down to the inside. That's the number 11 machine of Connor Horn. It will go right on by as they cross the start-finish line on the front straightaway, but with these drivers up at the front, you can see all of the new fresh tires on those trucks going right on by them. This is not going to go well for much longer. They need to start eyeing pit lane, and I'm worried for those drivers that came in early, a la McCandless, a la Nicholas Morse, even though Morse isn't good to the end yet. A handful of the other drivers that came in at the beginning of this stint, they might have their tires go out before they even have a chance to try and defend for their spots.
Nate Stewart down pit road, so he's one that stayed out. So he'll come out. The other battle we need to watch right here on your screen, this is for your virtual race lead if everything cycles out all the way between Caden Honeycutt and Justin Bolton, both of whom had exceptional pit stop delta times to get out of their boxes and get to the race lead. 37.3 and 37.5 for both these drivers, some of the fastest times that we had in the entirety of the field on this round of pit stops, and Bolton now back to the front ahead of Caden Honeycutt.
Look at him slicing a dice, and they're very aware what this battle could mean. Bolton gonna squeeze Honeycutt to the inside of Aaron Rodgers. They maintain. It is currently for 6th position with the top 5 cars yet to pit. And you could also realize if you fight too much now, you could open up the door to bring somebody like a Brian LaPrade back into this conversation. He is only about 2 seconds off of these two. So yes, it's critical to fight with each other. This could be the battle for the race win right here, right now. But the more you fight with each other, the more you're going to be hurting one another, because LaPrade has that 1 lap better tires. If you have some discipline here, you might be able to hold them off. If you're going side by side and going way offline, you are only going to invite him back into the picture. He's just there on the cusp. You saw him there coming off of turn 4, and that interval already down to 1.6. So LaPrade would really love to see these guys continue to fight.
He was a solid 3/10 faster than Bolton, 4/10 faster than Honeycutt, and that is the difference of 2 laps on fresh tires at Homestead, Miami. We've said all night tires matter, Josh Lee. We are seeing that bear out right here in front of our eyes as LaPrade continues to reel in the race leaders.
And LaPrade's only on 2 lap fresher tires, and it's making just that much more of a difference. You don't really see Homestead and you think, oh, tires getting chewed up. You think that at Atlanta. You might think that at Texas, the old Texas, but you don't really think that here at Homestead. We are seeing it here tonight.
You look at the lap times there on your screen. This is compared to Caden Honeycutt, who is part of that group, a solid 6/10, 3/10, 1/10. So that gap is starting to come down a little bit, but LaPrade is still reeling these two in. And as Evan hinted at, the best case scenario for the 35 is that Bolton and Caden Honeycutt continue to race each other, continue to slow each other down, and continue to allow LaPrade to jump back into this fight. He had 2/10 on these 2 trucks ahead of him. And oh, by the way, let's not forget that we still have 5 trucks that are out in front of this race outright, headed up the boomers by Max Brady in the 57.
Here he comes, Brian LaPrade. He is reeling these guys in. Just 2 laps. You would think it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but all the battling that's been going on ahead of him has really helped LaPrade, and he's going to be able to get up to Bolton and Honeycutt, and I think going to be able to drive right by.
How intriguing this all gets as we have 2 strategies playing out. We've got drivers who are trying to stay out and get a yellow flag within the next 10 laps or so to get the break they need to maintain their track position before they have to come down pit road. And then we've got this great battle for the virtual race lead between Justin Bolton and Caden Honeycutt, which for the moment is 2 trucks, but could very well become 3 if they continue to fight, as Justin Prince has more information for us on pit road.
And when it comes to Max Brady and the strategy mentioned from their camp just now, they're just hoping for a caution since he had spun on a restart. So they say this is their only hope with this call right now. Now swinging back towards LaPrade as well. It was mentioned he was a little free exit and a little tighter once they got in clean air. They made no changes though on their truck. They plan to go towards the end, and that truck is coming in quickly, guys, as you referred.
Can Briar LaPrade run down Bolton and Honeycutt? It is about the only question that we have left to answer, unless we get a yellow here in the next handful of laps for Max Brady, for Jeremy Allen. Those two are the last two trucks sitting out in front of Bolton and Honeycutt and LaPrade and Evan Pasoko. This could get very entertaining all of a sudden if Brady or Allen have to come in and we get that three-way battle for the race lead that we're keeping our eyes on here.
And even if they, could make it, I think, on field to the end of the race, I think these guys are going to catch him anyway. So I don't think it's going to matter with 22 laps to go. This is going to be the fight right here. And with LaPrade watching from the wings, you have to wonder, is now the time to do it if I'm Bolton? Do I make the pass now with LaPrade pressuring, or do I want to sit a little bit on the 10 car and wait? And same, theory could apply vice versa if you're talking about Caden Honeycutt trying to hold off the likes of Justin Bolton. But, of these three, LaPrade is the fastest. That advantage that he has, though, on those fresher tires is going to be less and less each lap, right? By the end of this race, it could end up perfectly balanced between them, where it's a pretty even three-way fight for the win here at Homestead. So all those drivers are trying to, try to hang onto the tires. There's still a couple of them in the mid-pack. Cattell, Toyka, some of the other drivers who have already been overtaken by these leaders have yet to come down pit road, but it's only a handful at this point, and they're going to be forced to come in, having last pitted some 46 laps ago. This is Caden Honeycutt's race, I think, at this point. Brian LaPrade was the spoiler earlier on. Here's his perspective as he continues to chase down the 10 and the 10.
It's a 10th here, it's a 10th there, it's a 10th here, it's a 10th there. And I think, Jeff McConey, what we're witnessing between these front three is that tire wear is going to begin to even out, and it's going to come down to how much you want to race the other trucks around you, which I think still would be advantage Briar LaPrade. The question now is, given that the gap between Honeycutt and Justin Bolton has opened up to about 2 or 3 truck lengths a little bit, does Bolton have anything left in his tires to make another run at Honeycutt? And if he doesn't, if Briar manages to get to Justin Bolton, how much does Briar have to burn up his stuff to get around the Justin Bolton machine and then go after the Caden Honeycutt truck to get the lead and maybe the win?
And we talk about it pretty much every race, James. It's one thing to catch the truck in front, completely different to pass the truck in front. And we might see that if LaPrade catches up to Bolton if he's running out of tire. And we could see that if Bolton is catching up to Honeycutt if he runs out of tire. They go by Jeremy Allen, who's still holding out, trying to wait for a yellow flag. They're about to catch Max Brady, as Brady is just going into one.
This virtual race lead battle, Jeff McConey, is about to become a real race lead battle because Max Brady is not that far up the track. Here comes Caden Honeycutt down the back straightaway, and this is live right in front of everyone. It is now down to truck lengths between the 57 and the number 10 for the race lead.
That it is, and Honeycutt's going to be able to just roll right by. It's not going to be any contest really, whether it's high, low, doesn't really matter. However, you really, really need to get moving here if you're Caden Honeycutt, because Briar LaPrade is gaining. He's only half a second. He's gaining about a 10th a lap on the trucks ahead, so this is going to be big. He just needs to work his way around Bolton after getting around Brady here. Brady on those older tires just doesn't have much that he can give, unfortunately. That's the gamble with the strategy. He needed a caution, and it didn't fall in his favor yet. It still could happen. If there's a caution, it could still work in his favor, but if you're one of the top 3 guys, you're already locked in and you're in good position. And Briar LaPrade, he's been quicker than anyone else out here. He's still got the pace. He's gaining on the leader, and he just needs to work his way around Bolton, and he'll be all set.
This is as close as these 3 trucks have been in this run as we approach 15 laps to go, and LaPrade is still a 10th up on all of them as Justin Bolton got incredibly loose out of turn 2, and Josh Lee, that might be the opportunity for LaPrade to get underneath and go get second.
A huge dive to the inside as they work their way through turn 3. Up into second place goes LaPrade, put Bolton back back to third. Honeycutt gonna work his way around the lap machine and Nicholas Morris. That is gonna put him in between Honeycutt and LaPrade. LaPrade gonna go to the inside of the lap machine. 4/10 separate these two with 15 to go. LaPrade sees him. He has him in his sights. Can he catch him? How quickly can he catch him? And will he be able to get by Caden Honeycutt? These are the two fastest trucks on track all day. LaPrade with 2 laps on Honeycutt in terms of tire saving.
And the other thing I'm noticing, Evan Pasoko, as I'm watching the 10, the rear end is stepping out on Honeycutt's number 10 machine far more than it is on Brian LaPrade's number 35. The rear end of LaPrade's truck far more planted as this race winds down.
Well, and that's the thing, is he's having to drive it a lot harder, right? I mean, Brian LaPrade, from coming from that deficit after pitting those 2 laps later, had been pretty calm, right? He wasn't forcing the issue like we saw to Honeycutt and Bolton when they had their couple of moments of fighting, and you see Lopez catching up to Bolton in the rear for a battle for third. So don't count him out, but certainly LaPrade has been a little bit more collected on this run, right? And Honeycutt knew that he had to dig off of the pit lane. He had to use his fresh tires. He had to get the advantage, knowing that LaPrade was going to be better on the back half. And I think it's a huge task with 13 laps to go for Caden Honeycutt to hang on to his 3/10 of a second advantage, because at this closing rate, Brian LaPrade should be there at about 9 laps to go. A little bit of variance. Sometimes the 10's faster than he was the previous lap, but you watch that interval, LaPrade is quicker. He will have to deal with a bit of that dirty air off of the number 10 of Honeycutt, but I'm surprised Honeycutt's holding his line. He's not trying to mix it up quite yet, so he's sticking to his guns still this late.
This is all going to come down to how much can the driver out of Aledo, Texas maintain the rear end of that truck, and how much can he use his late model skills to get every last bit of speed out of that machine without looping the rear end around on corner exit. That's the question we're all wondering now as we approach 10 laps to go, and Honeycutt's still in front, but that lead is coming down by hundredths of a second. It's still within a 10, but it's maybe a truck length at best. Jeff McCovey.
Yeah, and there was just some drama a little bit further back. Brendan Kohler just sent it in on Spencer Burns. Spencer was sideways, smoke coming out of the back like a chimney. Somehow able to save it was Spencer Burns. And that would have been terrible for Brian LaPrade, who's now getting closer and closer to that rear end. But tensions are getting high here with 10 laps to go at the line. This is where it all comes together. Brian LaPrade does not want to caution. He wants this race to stay green to the end. He wants to find a way around this 10 car up ahead of him. You see how much the 10 is battling. He is fighting that wheel back and forth. LaPrade is smooth as butter as he is driving here. He's got the truck, he's got the talent, he's got the calm mindset. You need to just work your way around and be patient here. With 10 laps to go in round 2 of Road to Pro to try and make it up into the Coke Series, though, it's a wonder how these guys keep it all together.
As LaPrade continues to run down Caden Honeycutt, let's go to Justin Prince for more information out of the 35 truck camp.
And when it comes to LaPrade, he is being told to keep the tires on it, to try and take his time when it comes to this move. Let the pressure come towards Honeycutt's direction as here we go.
Here comes Brian LaPrade. You saw Max Brady get into it, and you see some faster trucks as well. They're going to go 4 wide for the race lead for a split second as Brian LaPrade makes the pass on the inside and move the Ledford Billiard Supply Ford F-150 to the top spot with 9 laps to go at Homestead, Miami, Evan.
It only could have been a 4 wide with lap traffic, right, to throw off Brian LaPrade's plans there, but he kept his foot in the gas, and it really came down to what you mentioned a few laps ago, right? That back end for Caden Honeycutt is just not sticking to the racetrack. He had a big bobble coming through 3 and 4, and once Brian LaPrade got alongside, again, even those lapped cars to the very inside and outside weren't able to stop it, and now we'll see. You know, can Honeycutt stay ahead of Bolton? I think Jordy Lopez is pretty primed here to get second position as well. I mean, 8 laps to go is a long way, and she rode on board with that 44, but Brian LaPrade holding his breath up front. Jordy Lopez needs to get around Honeycutt quickly because he is not just content with taking a P2 away. Jordy Lopez would love to get another win here at Homestead, Miami.
And we have not talked about Lopez at all, as Honeycutt and LaPrade have fought each other for the race lead, but he's just been sitting in the shadows here, Jocelyn, waiting for his moment and riding underneath this battle that we've seen between LaPrade and Honeycutt and Bolton. And oh, by the way, he's right there on lap times. You can see it there on the bottom of your screen, right there with Briar LaPrade, but he's got a second-ish to have to come in and reel in LaPrade on. It's going to be tight over the course of the last 6 laps, Jeff.
It absolutely is, but anything can happen. But the really tough part is that he now needs to get around Honeycutt. There's lap traffic up at the top. Here comes the move for second place. Honeycutt holding that middle line. Lopez drifts up a bit. He's going to have to hold on to that bottom and keep it painted down there. And Honeycutt with the advantage up on the outside. We'll see if Lopez is going to be able to pull him on corner entry here. Now this is the battle for second place. This is what LaPrade needs. He needs this battle to go on as long as possible. Get that distance and pull away. Lopez is just about even with him in that VRS machine, and he's now barely not clear of Honeycutt. So the longer this battle goes on, the better it is for LaPrade. He wants these two battling for the next 5 laps until the end of this race.
Justin Prince, final few updates from the Briar LaPrade camp.
And right now he was being told to make sure to focus on his marks. Right now, that is the main focal point in the LaPrade camp. Just trying to keep him nice and calm and focused as well when it comes to his viewpoints. Keeping things nice and smooth on his inputs for the final few laps.
Briar LaPrade's had some big wins in his sim racing career, but Evan Pachoco, if he can hang on for the next 3 laps, I have to believe this goes up there. The problem is that you've got Jordy Lopez, who was a 10th faster, by the way, last time by, charging you down for the race lead.
Yeah, that's not the guy you want behind you, right? Especially at a racetrack that Jordy has been so good at historically. But I think it goes back to that battle with Caden Honeycutt. It just took him a little bit too long to clear. If he could have cleared him down into 1 on lap number 130, he would have been right on the deck of Briar LaPrade there. So he's going to be digging a 1/10 of a second in his favor the last lap, but it's that lap 129 making the pass that may be the difference maker here for Jordy Lopez. Inside of 3 laps to go, running out of time. Briar LaPrade with a little bit of traffic up the road, but should not be a factor.
This could be close, though. Lopez was a 10th faster that last time by. The problem is that he's got almost 6/10 that he needs to make up. 1/10 won't be enough, Josh. It's got to be 2/10 every single lap from here on out.
And he needs to be absolutely perfect. LaPrade's doing exactly that right now. LaPrade 2 lap fresher tires than Jordy Lopez Jr. 33 versus 35 on the stint number. And you can see Lopez diving it back into 1. Identical lines from both of these Ford F-150s. They roar off of turn number 2 to the back straightaway. LaPrade still with the lead. Only 5/10 separate these two. Lopez not able to make anything up in 2.
Lopez was a 10th faster again that last time by, but he needs more. It's down to 3/10 now, but is that going to be enough? What kind of move does he have in his lockers? They come to the McConaughey setup shop. White flag, Evan Pasoco.
And again, clear traffic in front, so Briar LaPrade is playing with house money here. 4/10 of a second. Lopez gonna drive it in on the inside, but he's gonna have to get real creative off of turn number 2. He needs some momentum. He just doesn't have the time left. Final time down the back straightaway.
It is all Briar LaPrade, as you've got one truck door-to-door with Jordy Lopez Jr. That's the 46 machine of Temu Toyko on fresh tires, and that will create all the gap that Briar LaPrade needs to take the Vice City pink and purple of Ledford Billiard Supply to victory lane in South Florida. Briar LaPrade, winner of race number 2 in round number 2 in this first race of 2 of the night for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Homestead, Miami. The first race to LaPrade, and it was a masterful drive. The last 68, call it 70 laps or so, Jeff McConaughey, LaPrade with the consistency, with the evenness. It is everything that we talked about earlier in this broadcast, and that just felt like a greatest hits of Briar LaPrade's abilities all on display in the second half of this race.
Absolutely. He was on point throughout the entire second half of this race here. From the beginning, started 11th, worked his way up to 5th, and then drove all the way up to the front. If you take a look over at his stream, man, he is on the verge of tears. That's how much this racing means. When you're trying to make a career out of this and you have to fight and claw your way up to the top level, and you put in so much work behind the scenes, you're building setups and practicing for hours, getting it just to your liking, doing everything that you need to do to get not only yourself but your team there, because there's so many people behind the scenes that are involved. Getting them to the front and winning the race, it means more than words can possibly say. So Briar LaPrade is through the roof. He's making a really great burnout here. But yeah, he was on top of the game, did exactly what he needed to do. The team made the right call and the right adjustments behind the scenes, and they managed to come home with a victory.
Now, fun fact for those who don't know, Briar's hometown of Manchester, Tennessee, also home to the Bonnaroo Music Festival. So, given how wild they get there, Evan, I'd like to think that if there's anywhere that knows how to throw a party, and there's any place that Briar might have been able to take a few cues from in the celebrations this evening, then that's a pretty good place to start, no?
Well, and you really got to enjoy these moments of celebration, right? I mean, the second he loads out of this sim, he's already going to have his mind set to Watkins Glen, right? A racetrack that you're going to need a lot of practice in, especially in 2021 in this modern era of eNASCAR here on iRacing, James. With the hyper-competitive environment, you have to enjoy these moments, right? We talk about a lot of the drivers racing in this Road to Pro, that are used to compete in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, that want to get back there. There are no guarantees that you'll ever get a win at this level again, that you'll ever reach this level again. I think Briar has a really, really bright future, but you have to enjoy these moments, celebrate it, and then get ready, because we are far from done. 2 races down, still 5 to go.
Plenty of action coming up, plenty of post-race coverage coming up as well. We're going to take a quick break and then be back to talk to our top 3 finishers from this race. Don't go anywhere. More coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series with a virtual Homestead Miami Speedway coming up on Podium Esports.
What's up, race fans? It's Brad, and I'm here to talk to you today on why TobyChristie.com is lit. TobyChristie.com is known as your one-stop shop for all NASCAR-related news. What y'all don't know is that I like to use it for all other reasons, because I don't be looking at the news. So this is what you could do. So grab my cellular device, bro. So what you can do is go to TobyChristie.com. You do a little scrolly scroll. Another great part about TobyChristie.com is that you can check all the best news and owners points related things for the bottom 2 series that I love the most, the Xfinity series and the Truck series. The last thing before I bore all of you is, if you go on TobyChristie.com, the best part is that if you forget for any reason that the owners points are up, or there's a new article, or there's another crew roster with my beautiful name on it, you can actually get a subscription to the TobyChristie.com mailing list, and for free you get all the information, and I don't gotta remind you. This is Brad, signing off.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that McConey Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at McConey Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, McConey Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to McConeySetupShop.com and learn why McConey Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
to the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, where it's a big win tonight for Brian LaPrade and Lockdown Racing. The Ledford Billiard Supply at Ford F-150 to victory lane for the first time this season. Johnny Lopez Jr. was runner-up, almost had Breyer at the end, just ran out of time. Justin Bolton with a hard-fought P3 finish. Caden Honeycutt was fourth this evening. Nicholas Shelton ran at about fifth all night and ends up there. Great finish for him. Dylan Alt had speed early. He was sixth. Brandon Cattell finished up and climbed up the totem pole when it mattered most to come home seventh. Eighth place for Casey Tucker. Parker Retzlaff, top 10 all night. He ends up ninth and 10th. A good run for Christian Peterson, Evan.
He gets a good result in this one, quiet after starting 21st. Liam Brotherton, your pole sitter, ends up at 11th position when it's said and done, ahead of Michael Finlayson, who was a big plus 19, tied for the biggest mover on the afternoon. Brendan Kohler, Connor Horn, and Agnew Phillip round through your top 15 finishers, ahead of Benjamin Nelson in 16th. Spencer Burns gets through that late race contact for 17th. Nate Stewart is 18th with Drew Freenosh and Tanner Love, your top 20.
Going on 21st is Dalton Collins, 22nd, Patrick Moose, 23rd, Christian Budd. Max Brady comes home 24th, and Derek Fulton rounds out your top 25. A tough late half of the race for Blake McCandless, still finishing 26th. Seth Noel in 27th, Jeremy Allen 28th, Will Norton 29th, with Timu Toika rounding out your top 30 and rounding out your field. It'll be Michael Guerrilla, Logan Helton, Justin Nasir, Aaron Rodgers, and Nicholas Morse. James Pike.
45 trucks that took the green flag this evening. Only one gets to be victorious. And Jeff Bocconi, I know you wanted to do this for a while tonight, so go ahead and tell the folks who won tonight's race. Just if we need to know his name or anything that's related to him, what do you say?
Tonight's winner of round number 2, race number 2 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro iRacing Series is none other than Bird Laporte, Brian LaPrade.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I think should explain the amount of excitement that Jeff has got for this prior, which then begs the question, where's your head at after this race and this green flag run? Once we got done with the yellow flags, just can you take us through your strategy and how you set up the final 70 laps of this race and then found a way to execute to come home with a win?
Yeah, first of all, it's just an emotional win. I'm usually just sitting there about 5th or 10th man on average, just hanging out, having a good time, but I've never won. So just anything, man. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally good. I gotta stop. It's finally good to deserve something for once and just straight up wheel out there. But I just gotta thank my mom and dad, just being the biggest fans out there for me. Cameron Ledford for supporting me the longest time. I'm so glad we could get the car and Victor truck in victory lane. Jeff, thank you for supporting me, and Lockdown Racing as always. I gotta thank everyone at Lockdown, Ralph Hutchison, Robbie Rabel, Taylor Hurst, Will Cooley, just Jimmy, Zach, everybody over there, Logan Sheets, Jordan Churchill. They keep me on just cloud 9 right now. They're just telling me to live it up and all that, man. But I can't thank everyone enough for supporting me. It's a long time coming. But yeah, I don't know. We just had a good car. I finally got my head right and just drove and did good. And didn't settle for 5th or whatever. I just went up there and got it. But shout out to Zach and Sheets, Logan Sheets, for setting me up with a great strategy there to be able to have that tire advantage. I feel like I probably burnt it up a little bit more than I wanted to. Just missed out on probably a little bit of an advantage. I think Jordy was running me down there at the end. But it feels so good to win. I can't tell you how much or just how good this feels, man.
It doesn't think it takes a rocket scientist to hear how much this means to you and to the team as well. And I think for those of us who have been around the community for a while, we know that Lockdown is not the biggest of teams in iRacing. The personnel numbers are not there compared to some of the other major organizations, but this is a very close-knit group at Lockdown. It's a very well-connected and a united group at Lockdown Racing. So for this team and for everybody who worked so hard to get it done, can you put in words what this means to everybody back at Lockdown?
I don't know. Small teams matter. Jimmy says it the best. Everyone's out there with multiple people, and we sit here just 2 or 3 people in a session, just running laps, hanging out, and just being friends. Honestly, I think that's the best part of our team, is just being able to have that connection as friends. Just over the whole racing deal. The racing is just a plus with all that. And I gotta thank one more person also. Speaking of lockdown, Anthony Alfredo. He supported us a long way, became really good friends months ago. But he just put it in the effort to support us and give us what we can. But I gotta thank him also. But yeah, it's so cool to finally pull one of these off for the team too. I feel like that goes a long way instead of just me personally. But yeah, I love the guys at Lockdown. They're everything to me.
Guess last question. I suppose you're going to have to celebrate on your own stream with Patriot and Briar a little bit too after this, right? Going to be a bit of an after party over there, no?
Oh yeah, they seen me bawling my eyes out for the past I don't even know how many minutes, but yeah, it's incredible, man. I've been streaming since I think 2018, summer of 2018, and it's built up a long way. That's actually how Zach and Jimmy found me and brought me onto the team. And they've just built me from the ground up pretty much. I wasn't the greatest iRacer. I was just mediocre at best, and thanks to them is just where I'm at. That's where they put me, man.
Biggest win of your career in sim racing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nothing's gonna top this unless I can win something again, I guess. I don't know. I don't win a lot, so I guess to all those iRacers out there that don't think they can get it done, just keep your head going, man. Just keep it straight. It's gonna come. Put in the work. It'll happen. You just got to give it time. It's just incredible how competitive this community is. And I don't mean to keep this interview going, but it's just, I don't know. It's just wild. I can't believe this.
Well, as the old saying goes, the first one's always the hardest one, and now you have the first one out of the way, so maybe they come a little bit easier going forward, but it's been fun to watch the ascent. Briar, congratulations on your first win in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, and thanks for the time. Go celebrate big. I think all of us here at Podium know how much you've worked for this.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys, and thank you guys for the broadcast, of course.
Briar LaPrade, winner in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, and I doubt he will tire of that one. And a man who knows the feeling, who's won in this series before and almost did it tonight, Jordy Lopez Jr., runner-up piece with Evan Pasoko.
It was almost a late race push there by the driver of the 44 machine. Instead, it's a second tonight from Homestead for Jordy Lopez Jr. Jordy, thanks for sticking around and chatting with us. Congratulations on a good result. You guys had to start way back, though, in P25. Just tell us about that drive through the field just to even get into position late in this race.
It was very hard because we have a lot of air push, and I was just trying to manage my tires and dealing with that as well. But the guys at Altus Esports, they pulled a great truck together, and we just had the speed all night, just not enough laps to close the deal. But it's a great job. Thank you to Matt Danson and Marcus for like spotting me tonight. It was a great night overall.
You have race wins here at Homestead at this level in the past. What is it about this racetrack that just clicks so well with you to be able to make up from that Q effort and drive through the field for a race best plus 19 and consistently have the speed? No matter how many drivers come in and out of this series, it seems like you're always going to be a threat here.
I really don't know. I just think that the track flows well with my driving style. I've always liked it here. It's a joy to drive around. I used to live 2 minutes from Homestead, so I have a lot of history here, and I really do love this track.
Well, I know you're trying to continue to make some history. We're 2 rounds in now to this second half of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. What's your assessment on how you guys sit thus far with a road course coming up in Watkins Glen on the 5th?
I feel really good because I haven't used a drop yet, and it's all about getting consistent finishes. And we're going to our road course, and I feel very confident in tracks like those. So I'm just gonna keep pushing hard and just try to rack up as many top 5 as I can. The main goal is to just not get in wrecks and to just finish well, and we will be in the Pro Series in no time.
The mission accomplished here tonight, Jordy. Again, appreciate you sticking around and chatting with us. Congratulations on the good result, and we'll catch you again in 2 weeks.
Okay, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It is your second place finisher tonight for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, Jordy Lopez Jr. James, keeping things rolling.
Jordy Lopez Jr., he's got speed in that 44 truck. I think we've not seen the last of him in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. But at the end of this night, I think in the beginning, the story was about some of the folks who tried to go all strategy and it didn't work out for them. But by the end of this, there's a clear number one story that we leave this evening with, without question, Josh Lee. Briar LaPrade getting to victory lane, finally. I don't feel like I need to add more beyond what he said in the interview, because that was one of those rare interviews where you could hear how much it meant to him. And I have to believe if we get the chance to go back and see his stream once he wraps up, we'll go back and watch the tape and it'll tell us everything we need to know. But this was a watershed moment for Brian tonight, and certainly one that I think we can all say he's worked for a very, very long time to get to.
And I don't think he has low confidence by any means. He definitely has the results to have that confidence. And we've seen him come into these races with that confidence on the racetrack. But I think this is only going to just put the nail in the coffin that he is here to play and that he belongs with the drivers in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. I mean, you could hear it, just the emotion from him. Winless through round number 1, a good finish in the top 35 of round number 1, and then comes into round number 2, goes into Knoxville, had a decent finish there, but then this Homestead finish is what he needed. And I mentioned it during the break, he gets on Podium Esports and it seems like he gains 10 to 15 miles an hour, and it just goes to show that the stage, that when he gets put on a stage, he can shine, and that is exactly what he needs, especially going into eNASCAR, the Pro Series at the end of the season, and the Coke Series next year.
Also, Jeff, since we had our brains blown out with bird noises there a few moments ago, shall we send the invoice for all of our new sets of headsets to you? I take it?
Yes, and I'm going to write that off as a tax expense. Yeah, that's all set. Don't even worry about it. That's already been sent to the accountants. But can you blame me? You know, it was an awesome race there. The entire Lockdown Racing team is phenomenal. They are really, really incredible. And Briar LaPrade there made it happen. Don't even knock Fenleyson as well, because he finished 12th after starting 35th. So all in all, a great night for that team.
A great night for Lockdown Racing, a great night for Briar, but we keep on changing up the types of tracks. In 2 weeks' time, Evan Pasoko, we're going road racing from New York's Thunder Road, Watkins Glen, our next stop on the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. And everything we see the first 2 weeks, I feel like you could just about throw it out of the window, but it's going to be a little bit more open because we don't have a Mitchell DeYoung in the race this year. No true road course ringer that really has made a name for himself in that regard in this series. So this could be one of the more wide open road course races that this series has had in a long time.
Yeah, or we could be seeing the next road course ringer getting ready, right? This is the opportunity, right? I mean, I mentioned that Knoxville's a bit of a throwaway, that one really doesn't represent your speed all over the place. And Watkins Glen is still an outlier, but it's different, right? We're seeing these road courses become that much more critical in the NASCAR Cup Series level, in the eNASCAR ranks as well, from the Coca-Cola Series down through this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. You're going to need to be good at these tracks. There are some drivers, if you could be really good on the ovals, you can get away with, I'll just get some points here, right? Get me a top 20, I'll be happy with it. But as we work deeper and deeper into this, and then as these drivers take the next step, for this being the only road race, if you like this kind of racing, this is your shot. Go out there and get those points, because you will not have another opportunity to have a step up on the competition like you do tonight. So this road course racing continues to be more and more important to your craft year after year. Here's your shot. So should be a fun one in 2 weeks.
More road course races on the Coke Series calendar this year than any other season prior in the history of the Coke Series, and I imagine that probably won't change over the course of the next season. But before we go, we'll remind you of some of the events coming up in the world of iRacing throughout the next week or so. We're back in action on Sunday night with the SimMax Cup Series powered by Max Pappas Innovations from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Our broadcast will start this Sunday night, July 25th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. So for those of you who are hankering for some next-gen Cup Series racing or some oval racing in general, since NASCAR's off as the Olympics kick off, turn to the Podium Esports Twitch channel, find a little bit of racing in the meantime. The Monday Night Racing playoffs continue with the Super Late Models at Nashville Super Speedway. You'll see that broadcast with pre-race starting at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time next Monday night on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, the Podium Facebook, the Podium YouTube, and the MNR Twitter page. Operation eMotorsport continues their Season 3 of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course coming up Tuesday, July 27th, 8 p.m. Eastern, the start time for that on the Operation Motorsport YouTube channel. And at almost the same time, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series All-Star Race heads to Nashville Super Speedway. We're going to see how that track races with the best of the best in sim racing. Pre-race for that will start next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels before we are back on air with the third race of the second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Watkins Glen International. Our road course stop for this season comes your way August 5th, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports and twitch.tv/Podium 2. We'll have the second race as well as we will for the entirety of the rest of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season with coverage courtesy of Zach Johnson, Jacob Pitts, Kevin McAdams, Sean Butler, and Justin Malillo. Make sure to check out that crew if you haven't had the chance, or if you need to go back and watch tonight's broadcast, you can definitely go see what they were up to over the course of these past few hours. And make sure that you follow Podium Esports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube to stay up to date with our latest broadcasts and keep abreast of when we'll be on air next time. Time for us to say good night from South Florida. So for our entire team at Podium Esports, Gary Sexton, Sisto Scaramuzza, John Theodore, for tonight's producer, Ryan Bauer, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, and for my colleagues, Evan Pasoko, Josh Lee, Jeff McCody, and Justin Prince down on pit road, as well as our fabulous team on Podium 2. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Homestead Miami Speedway, and we will see you in the Finger Lakes in New York for more racing from Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. Congratulations to tonight's winner, Briar LaPrade.